Hi friends, I'm Miss Stephanie and today we're going to do an experiment. This experiment is sink or float. Now as you can see in front of me, I have a bunch of things. I have a ball, a duck, a crayon, a nut, but not the kind that you eat. You build with one of these. I have a rock, a bead, a game piece, and a quarter. I also have a big bowl. You can see it's clear because you want to make sure you can see things inside the bowl. And it is filled most of the way with water. And what we're doing with these things today is we're going to see which of these things float, stay at the top of the water, and which of these things sink, go down to the bottom of the bowl. Now, what makes things sink and what makes things float? Well, if an item is something called dense, then it will sink. What it means to be dense is every item is made up of molecules. Now, if an item is dense, these molecules are super tight together. They are packed in a very tight space, and that item will sink. Now, if an item has fewer molecules, or the molecules are less dense, they're farther apart, then they will float to the top. So that's what makes things sink or float. But just looking at these items, we don't know what has dense molecules and which has less dense molecules. If you pick them up, this rock feels kind of heavy while this duck feels kind of light, but the bead and the crayon, they feel the same. The game piece and the bead, whoops, they feel the same. So is it by weight? I don't think so. I don't think weight and density, which is what it means when things are dense, their density are the same. So let's experiment. Let's put things in my bowl of water and see what sinks, and let's see what floats. So I want to start with the green grasshopper duck. Now, do you think that the green grasshopper duck is going to sink or go to the bottom of the bowl? Or do you think he's going to float or stay at the top of the bowl? I'll just give you a second, let you think. All right, let's find out. So I'm just going to put him right in. Boop. It looks like he's floating. Now, what does that mean about his density? So that means that his molecules are less far apart. He is less dense. So he's floating. Let's try another thing. Let's try the rock. What do you think? Do you think the rock is going to sink or float? Now, you can think back to prior knowledge if you've ever had the chance to go to the beach, the lake, a river, and throw rocks around. Did you ever notice if the rocks sank or floated? Let's find out. Let's drop it in. Boop. It sank. It went all the way to the bottom. What does this mean about its density? It means that its molecules are very tightly packed. It is very dense, so it sinks. Let's try another item. Let's try the crayon. What do you think? Do you think that this crayon will sink or will it float? Let's put it in and find out. Oh, it hit the bottom, but it ended up coming right back up to the top, and it is floating. So it is less dense. What about the nut? Remember, don't eat this kind of nut. It's made of metal. Do you think it is going to sink or do you think it's going to float? Let's find out. It sank right to the bottom. So that means it is very dense. What about the bead? Do you think the bead is going to sink or do you think the bead is going to float? Let's find out. Looks like the bead's floating, so it is less dense. The molecules are less densely packed. What about the ball? Do you think the ball is going to sink or do you think the ball is going to float? It's a squishy ball. Let's find out. The ball floats. So that means that it is less dense. What about the game piece? Is the game piece going to sink or is it going to float? Let's drop it in and find out. It sank right to the bottom, so it is more dense. What about the quarter? Do you think it's going to sink or do you think it's going to float? This is another time where you might use prior knowledge. If you've ever had the chance to drop a coin into a fountain, did you notice it sinking or floating? Let's drop it in and find out. The quarter sank to the bottom. So we learned today that items that are less dense, that have molecules that are farther apart, are ones that will float. We also learned that items or things that have more molecules that are tightly packed together, they are more dense and they will sink to the bottom. So I had a lot of fun doing this experiment with you guys today. I hope that you had fun too. I highly recommend you try this at home, and you can use any household objects that will not get ruined in water. Most people have some kind of dish. It doesn't have to be clear, but this just makes it easier so you can see everything that is inside. This gave you a good look at all the things that sank into the water, but it doesn't have to be clear. Thank you so much for joining me today. I had a lot of fun. I hope that you did too. And I can't wait to do this again with you guys next time. Bye!